From UFO sightings and wormholes to cryptids, cattle mutilations, and poltergeists, a remote property in northern Utah has earned the reputation of being a Disneyland of paranormal and supernatural occurrences. Known for captivating even the most skeptical minds, this place is none other than Skinwalker Ranch. Utah, particularly northern Utah and the Uinta Basin, is often touted as one of the most active hotspots for paranormal and supernatural activity on Earth. The region has been home to a plethora of strange happenings, including unidentified lights in the sky, bizarre humanoid figures, and even Bigfoot sightings. The history of high strangeness in this area stretches back to the earliest human settlements, and many locals assert that nearly 3 out of every 4 residents have experienced something inexplicable. For those simply passing through, there is often a heavy sense of unease, as though the dusty roads and stark landscapes conceal dark secrets. Much of this strange activity seems concentrated within the basin, but many believe that there lies a central point from which all this bizarre phenomena emanate. This focal point is a picturesque 480-acre ranch located about 100 miles east of Salt Lake City. As with most properties, it has traditionally taken the name of its owners, but over time it has been branded with another, more sinister title. The Ute tribe believed the land was cursed by the Navajo, and even today, members of the tribe refuse to set foot on the property, convinced it lies within the path of the Skinwalker, a shape-shifting entity from their folklore. Consequently, the property became widely known as Skinwalker Ranch. During the latter half of the 20th century, the ranch was owned by a family that has remained largely anonymous within this tale of mystery. For reasons unknown, they abruptly vacated the ranch in 1987, leaving it abandoned for over 7 years. In 1994, Terry and Gwen Sherman purchased the property, moving in with their 2 children. They believed they had found their dream home. The ranch, bordered by a high ridge to the north that overlooked expansive green pastures, dense woodlands, and a flowing creek to the south, exuded a serene beauty that captivated the Shermans. Terry, a high-end cattle breeder, saw in this ranch the opportunity to expand his business, providing the space, privacy, and security he needed to elevate his passion to a new level. He had purchased the property at a price far below its market value, and as he accepted the deeds, he could hardly believe his luck. The land represented his ambition, his future, and his dreams. Little did he know that this seemingly perfect property would nearly ruin him, financially and psychologically. Upon first viewing the property, Terry and Gwen noted that the main homestead was in disrepair, something they had expected given the years it had stood vacant. What they did not anticipate, however, was the unusual level of security. Deadbolts were installed not only on the front and back doors but also on every interior door and window. Outside, heavy-duty chains and metal rings were embedded into the walls, clearly intended for large guard dogs. Though unnerved, the Shermans dismissed these oddities, chalking them up to the paranoia of the previous owners, an elderly couple who had seemed eccentric during the sale process. The real estate contract itself contained several strange clauses. Notably, the Shermans were forbidden from digging on the property without prior permission from the former owners. These unusual stipulations were largely overlooked, but in the back of Terry's mind, a question lingered: what could have possibly frightened the previous owners into such extreme measures? It would not be long before he began to understand that this beautiful stretch of land was unsettling in more ways than one. From the very first day they moved in, the Shermans encountered strange phenomena. As they unloaded their truck in front of the house, they noticed a figure moving in the distance. As it approached, they realized it was a massive wolf, gracefully moving in a serpentine pattern across the pasture. Terry immediately felt uneasy, not just because of the wolf's presence but because of its enormous size. Compared to nearby fence posts and bushes, it was at least 3 times the size of a normal wolf. Despite its intimidating appearance, the wolf behaved in a calm and almost friendly manner, casually closing the distance between it and the family. The wolf slowed down, stopped about 50 yards away, and sniffed the air, gazing at the family with piercing blue eyes. It then approached in a relaxed manner, wagging its tail as though it were a domesticated pet. Terry's father, who was helping with the move, reached out and petted the animal, noting how the creature's head was level with his shoulder even though he was over 6 feet tall. The rest of the family, seeing that the animal posed no immediate threat, began to relax. Terry nervously eyed the nearby corral, where several of his breeding cows and their calves were penned. He wondered if he had moved his livestock onto the ranch too soon. The cows were visibly anxious, especially one curious calf that had stuck its head between the metal bars to observe the wolf. Before Terry could react, the wolf lunged at the calf, clamping its massive jaws around the young cow's head. The calf struggled and bleated in terror as the wolf tried to drag it out of the pen. Terry grabbed an axe handle from the truck and struck the wolf repeatedly, but the blows had no effect. Desperate, he shouted for his son to fetch his .357 Magnum. His son rushed to the truck, retrieved the weapon, and handed it to his father. Terry fired at the wolf's abdomen, but to his astonishment, the bullet seemed to have no impact. The wolf did not stagger, yelp, or even flinch. Terry fired twice more, but the wolf remained undeterred, only releasing its grip on the calf after the third shot. Despite being struck multiple times, the wolf appeared completely uninjured. There was no blood, no indication of pain, nothing to suggest it had even been hit. With his nerves fraying, Terry instructed his son to bring his .30206 rifle. When Terry fired at the wolf with the higher caliber weapon, he saw a chunk of flesh fly off the animal, yet the wolf still did not fall. It simply turned and trotted away, vanishing into the trees on the southern edge of the property. Determined to eliminate the threat, Terry and his son pursued the wolf, following its tracks for half an hour through patches of Russian olives and along the creek. They were baffled when the paw prints suddenly ended in the middle of a muddy bank. The wolf's tracks stopped abruptly, as though the animal had simply disappeared into thin air. On their way back to the house, they found the chunk of flesh Terry had shot off the wolf. Strangely, it appeared rotten and decayed, as if it had been lying in the sun for days. The wolf encounter marked the beginning of a string of bizarre incidents that only grew more unsettling. Gwen began experiencing strange occurrences inside the house, which she initially kept to herself out of fear that she was losing her mind. Groceries she had just unpacked would mysteriously reappear in their bags as if they had never been put away. Items like her towel and hairbrush would vanish from the bathroom while she showered, only to be found hours later in random spots around the house. Terry also had his share of inexplicable moments. One evening, he stormed into the house, demanding to know who had taken his post digger, a heavy piece of equipment he had been using to repair a fence. Terry had turned away for only a moment, but when he looked back, the digger was gone. It was later found hanging 70 feet up in a tree on the far side of the ranch, a seemingly impossible feat given its 70-pound weight. The Shermans were beginning to suspect that something was deeply wrong with their new home. One evening, while giving his nephew a tour of the ranch, Terry noticed a set of headlights moving along a distant fence line within his property. He had seen the lights before and assumed they were from lost travelers. However, as the lights began to move away from him and his nephew, he realized they were entirely silent. The lights then lifted off the ground, floated over some treetops, and disappeared from view, leaving Terry bewildered. Throughout the fall, these lights became more frequent, and the odd occurrences escalated when Terry began transporting his prized Simmental and Angus cattle onto the ranch. The situation worsened with the onset of winter. Severe snowstorms ravaged the area, and Terry often found himself searching the ranch for missing cattle late into the night. One evening, while looking for a prized cow that had been missing for a day, Terry followed its tracks deep into a wooded area. The hoof prints indicated that the cow had been running, but they abruptly ended in the middle of a clearing, leaving no trace of the animal. Over the course of the winter, more of Terry's cattle would vanish in similar circumstances, and he spent many sleepless nights prowling his own land, trying to catch whatever was responsible. Though the strange lights became a regular sight, they always remained distant, seemingly aware of Terry's presence and evading him at every turn. One night, Terry spotted a black, silent craft hovering low over the ground. To him, it resembled a smaller, quieter version of the F-117 Nighthawk, but this craft emitted no sound and defied gravity, floating effortlessly over the snow. Terry observed it for over 15 minutes before it silently drifted away,